Hey, everybody, the Kings Roundtable, the pregame. We get you right into the Kings and the Cavs. What a tall order for Sacramento tonight. They are taking on a team that's arguably the best in the NBA, certainly right now, clearly the best in the East. They played last night and lost to the Clippers. They come in with a 2-game losing streak. And the Kings tonight are without, as you know, Sabonis, now Zach LaVine. He will not play due to personal reasons, and Jake LaRavia is out with an illness. Oh, boy. And let me tell you something. Very rarely do the best teams in the respective conferences lose 3 games in a row. It does not happen very often. The Kings better get some big-time performances, Jerry, from the Keegan Murrays of the world tonight.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to have to A-plus game. There's no doubt about it. As thin as they are, everybody that's got to step up. They're going to be some guys get some good opportunities to play extended minutes. So, yeah, you just got to hope everybody, certainly Malik Monk and Keegan Murray and DeRozan, they can all go for big
The fans
numbers.
asked, and you get it. Keon Ellis tonight, major minutes, and has to be majorly effective, gentlemen.
You're going to have to.
Yeah, and really he might. I mean, we always wanted to see him play more all year long, but I mean, maybe going against Donovan Mitchell, if you could, without Darius Garland, I think they're going to be without him. So Mitchell becomes even more important, and if Keon could really make it tough on him, then you at least you got a puncher's
The one
chance.
thing that's which. Again, we know Cleveland's good. Their record speaks for itself, but they're deep. You even look at the game last night. They lost on the road against the Clippers, and look at the minutes played. Their starters don't even have to play a lot of minutes or don't play a lot of minutes because their bench is so good.
It was a close game too, Jerry.
Yes.
Yeah. They're deep enough, and they got a guy on that team, Ty Jerome, that's bounced around the league. For several years, the Warriors had him, a couple other teams had him, and he's just been terrific off the bench as a third guard. The guy is, so we're going to see him a lot tonight. But I mean, one of those guys that makes shots, makes plays. He was the best player or second best player on Virginia's national champion several years ago. And one of those guys that, it's kind of like the Derek White at Boston, that every year they just kept getting better until all of a sudden it's like, wow.
Yeah, and Darius Garland is not playing tonight due to rest. He had just come back from an injury and played last night. And of course, you don't want to hurt these guys, and so you better rest them. The whole thing. It just drives me crazy. But anyway, at least the Kings are getting a little bit of a break there. He's a really good player, guys.
Oh yeah, he's an all-star point guard. And certainly he and Donovan Mitchell really present maybe as good a guard line as there is in the league. So that's why I say that's why the Ty Jerome is probably going to be a key tonight to try to make up for some of that. I don't think he can make up.
Jerry,
all
is this the most complete basketball team the Kings have seen all year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've got an all-star guard line, but their front line is long, big, and talented. And they've got a deep bench, and they're well coached. And I certainly think Kenny Atkinson really, there's several coaching candidates for the coach of the year, but he, Cleveland was a good team last year, but now they got the best record in the league. So tells you something.
Yeah. And, how big of a loss is Garland? It goes without saying he's an all-star, but it's huge for them, isn't it?
It is. Where they're lucky is that Donovan Mitchell can really play lead guard just as well. And so there's guys that can play with him. So that's why I say I think if, in fact, you could make it tough on Donovan Mitchell, which is easy to say, hard to do, that would really impact him because, he's going to be expecting and feel like he can put up bigger numbers than even
and
usual.
Kenny Atkinson had a conversation with Donovan Mitchell before the season began and said, hey, you yield a little bit here, you're going to gain this much more across the board with the team. So that same Donovan Mitchell that we've seen in Utah, he still lives. You just don't always see him every night.
Very true.
Yeah, he's just not quite the same volume guy, And that's always the key with championship level teams, guys sacrificing some of their individuality for the betterment of the team. Yeah, he could average 30, but that's not what's best for the team.
Tall order again for Sacramento tonight. If you're just coming in a few minutes late, we know about no Sabonis. He'll be reevaluated in 10 days. You don't have Zach LaVine tonight due to personal reasons, and no Jake LaRavia. So no Garland for the Cavaliers, but the Kings without, two starters and a guy that's been playing well off the bench in LaRavia. So I'm a little worried about the first quarter tonight. We saw the Cavaliers just steamroll the Clippers in the first quarter last night. The Clippers came back and won the game, but first quarters have been a problem for Sacramento. And, without two starters, that could be an issue tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a nice start to the game the last time out, but like you say, they're undermanned this time, and I really do think the Jake LaRavia thing is a big loss too. I mean, he's really starting to find his way out there. Getting more comfortable shooting the ball. Of course, I just love his energy and toughness about him. I mean, he kind of gets in the game, and he's in the game.
He's
right
an
away.
eraser. He comes in and he cleans up defensive crime scenes, and he does a damn good job at it.
Well, they won't have him tonight, and hopefully, tomorrow, which is the third game in 4 nights, and the Bulls are in Sacramento, and they're ready to go. They're playing better. Again, the only good news, and when I say the only good news, is the Kings can lose a lot of games, and they're still probably going to be fine because both the Mavericks and the Suns don't look like a threat behind them to jump up and steal those spots. So they should be fine. And I guess then the key is make sure you're healthy when you do get to a play-in game. In all likelihood, you're either going to be 9 or 10, and if you lose, your season's over. So if you want to look that far ahead, you got to have Sabonis healthy. You got to have everybody healthy. And you never know. That's why you play the games.
Yeah, you do hope that too. I mean, right now they really do look locked in at 9. I mean, it's not saying it's impossible to move up to 8, but with the schedule and their circumstance, it's hard to see. And truthfully, I just don't see how they could slip down either. Regardless, I mean, with Dallas and
they
Phoenix,
can't. They're not going to.
I could see Phoenix possibly catching Dallas, but I can't see him doing anything.
Yeah, and Phoenix has, we go over the Suns' schedule. They have the toughest schedule in the league. I mean, their schedule is unbelievably hard. So, it's the Kings are going to be in the play, and it's just a matter of, are they going to be 9 or are they going to be 10? I don't think they're going to be 7 or 8.
Jerry, obviously you go out to win every game that you play in, but with the circumstances you guys just described, is this a case where maybe you focus, if you're Doug Christie, on finding something new or at least solidifying something that you can hang your hat on going into the play-in?
Well, that's a great point, Ryan. I mean, I'll say this: he's going to have to look for something. It's one of those things to where, with the injury circumstance and his team, he's probably going to have to do a little experiment and hope, that he gets some real mileage out of guys who haven't played a lot, maybe, or as much. And so you're right. He might not just with players, but even with style of play. We might see him try to be a little more structured or something, because I think the faster this game is, probably doesn't work in the Kings' favor.
It's going to be a very challenging night. That is for sure. It's going to be a challenging 24 hours. That's a lot of basketball in a short period of time after a game against Memphis, a day off, Cleveland, next day, Chicago. And, you look at the schedule coming up, and it is very, very challenging indeed. The bright spot is the Kings did play well against Memphis, but now they're shorthanded, and we'll see if their momentum that they gained against Memphis comes to a screeching halt. Again, I just don't like the 10 days to 2 weeks, and I think it's going to be more than 10 days. The Kings this year are what? They're 3-6 without Sabonis, and with these games coming up, I don't see a lot of wins here without Sabonis. I just don't. Not with this schedule coming up.
No, I don't either. And it's really it's just such a tough break for the team and all, because really Zach LaVine and Sabonis hadn't played that
Yeah.
much together. And obviously that's a real key, I think, with Zach and he and Sabonis getting comfortable. That's a must. I mean, Zach is really the guy that can make a difference in the game more than anybody else, I think. And so, yes, tough break. And I agree with your point too. That look at it in 10 days. Well, that doesn't tell you when he's going to be able to play. If it's really as the sprain as bad as it looked, it may be tough for him to come back within 3 weeks, really.
Yeah, and we're just talking about the ankle. The hamstring, although he was playing through it, still seemed to be lingering a little bit. Seemed like he came up a little bit lame in Phoenix. Jerry, in terms of the minutes in games like this, let's say the Kings are getting blown out. Is this one where you are trying to be a lot more cautious about the minutes you're playing your starters with this stretch of basketball coming up?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think with a back-to-back coming up and a team that you would think the Bulls, you'd look at that on your schedule if you're the Kings and say that's a winnable game. And so, if the game is out of reach, then you better be preparing for the next game.
The only problem with that is Doug Christie has not shown any signs of that's the way he's going to coach. We've been on post-game shows, Ryan, talking about the minutes played in lopsided games. That's not his MO, and I don't know why he would start changing that now. So I actually don't think he's going to do that. Doug has a very we know about Doug. His mentality is compete, 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 compete. That's what he's all about. And I think sometimes he has blinders on in that regard. But listen, I say that's a good thing about him. And then on the other hand, I'm saying, this is a time when you need to back off a little bit. But again, guys, that's just not his MO.
No, I agree with you. And I think, too, it's one of those things that as a young coach, which he is, that he'll learn. Basically live to fight another day. And really, it's a case of once a game is lost, it's lost. And you can't. You need to be in the best shape possible to play the next one. And so that's the NBA and that's the NBA schedule. So that's a lesson probably he needs to learn because he may surprise us here, because it definitely could.
So
come
Jerry,
up.
how does that lesson get learned? Is it an injury? Is it a player speaking up?
Yeah, I think that probably it more than anything, Ryan. I think it's a player saying, "Hey, look, we want to win, that, but we want to be able to win tomorrow when we clearly can't win today, And I think with veteran players, I mean, when you have the Sabonis and Valanciunas and DeRozan and Zach LaVine, those guys have been around enough. I don't think it'd be any problem them speaking up, and that's probably how the message will get.
And I think sometimes the message, we're talking about an interim coach, so I think sometimes the message comes from the front office when you're in a meeting and just saying, hey, let's talk about our minute strategy and let's go over this. So again, it's hopefully it doesn't become an issue, but you're down guys tonight. You're down 3 key players, which means other players have to step up and play. And we talk about Keon Ellis. I mean, he's probably going to play 35 minutes tonight, and then we'll see how he is for tomorrow because you're going to need him for, his tenacious defense tomorrow too. It's life in the NBA, and that's what Doug says. Don't make excuses. I guarantee you if the Kings lose tonight, the first thing Doug's going to do is I don't want to hear about the injuries. It's the NBA. You got to play. It's next man up. That's his mentality. That's how he is.
Well, it's like the other night. I wasn't. Denver played without Jokic,
That's right.
Murray, Gordon. I think practically all their key guys, and they won.
Yep.
And so that is, of course, it goes both ways because the opposition, and that's always the danger when you're the team playing a team that doesn't have their key guys out there. Have a tendency. They don't have their main guys. We're going to be good tonight. It's like, well. You still got to go do it because they're all NBA players, and some are just waiting for their opportunity, and they're fresh. You get these guys that haven't played a lot, and sometimes you can get surprised.
So, Jerry, who, if you look at the Kings bench mob, I call them the D bench mob because of the defense, but who are you circling as the guy that needs to get the extra minutes and be that X factor tonight for Doug Christie?
Well, I think Devin Carter is going to have to play quite a bit, and I think I'd like to see Isaac Jones play a little more. He's a lively, long, athletic guy. Who seems like every time he's played, he's been productive. And it's hard to be productive in 4 or 5 minute stretches, but he has been, and so some of these guys will get a little bit better chance. That's for sure.
It's our job to talk about these individual games, and that's why we have an audience, and that's why we're doing these shows. But if you really want to look at the big picture, the reality is tonight's game doesn't make that doesn't matter. Okay, it just doesn't. This Kings team is going into the play-in tournament because of the competition behind them. And when the Kings start the play-in, nobody's going to be talking about the game played in March against Cleveland when Sabonis and Levine and LaRavia didn't play. To me, and again, I may look at this different than you guys, you just cannot afford another injury coming down the stretch here. To me, that's what I'm looking at. Whether you win or lose these games right now, on the totality of everything, doesn't really matter. No one's going to be judging this team on these games in March. They're going to be judging this team, and I guarantee you the owner is going to be judging this team on, whether or not they can sneak into the playoffs as a play-in. That's the reality of the situation. So, and I did a rant on this yesterday. I thought the Kings fans went way overboard with the Memphis win. I really do. Did the Kings play well? Yeah, they did. Did they snap a 4-game losing streak? Yes, that was great. But Memphis was without 3 key players, including their star, John Morant, and only been 5-5 in their last 10. To me, and this is the best thing about Kings fans, and to me it's the worst things. You make too much out of wins and you make too much out of losses. You have to temper yourself on an individual game basis. Look at the team over increments. I always like to use 5-game increments. You go too much over one game. You just can't do it.
So are you saying I need to cancel my NBA Finals preview for the rest of the pregame?
Yeah. But Jerry, I'm serious. And that's, again, it's the best thing about Kings fans because they love this team so much. They live and die with every game. You can't do that over 82 games.
No, it's the old John Wooden statement, that don't get too high, don't get too low. Stay. In other words, you get those highs, then all of a sudden you can get too low, and peaks and valleys. Don't fall for the peaks, and don't get yourself in the valley. And I think that is exactly the way to approach it, and especially with the NBA, as you pointed out. I mean, that's why you see teams in their 5-10 game stretches where, like Minnesota now, with all of a sudden winning 8 out of 10, where a month ago they were 3-7. Well, it changes, and that's what you're searching for. That's why the disappoints me is with this game is what the Kings would get out of it if they were healthy, is find out how they
stack up. It's a measuring stick game.
How they stack up with the very best team in the league, or one of the
but it
best
still gives you, and you're right, Jerry, but it gives you the ability to gauge your controllables. Can the Kings still come out and at least do some of the things they want to do? Or there are little things in between that they're trying to build on that they're able to maybe not execute over a 48-minute period, but have success at times against a team of this caliber in Cleveland. And I think it's those little things where you've got to find building blocks in games where you really have no business winning.
Well, I go back to the Oklahoma City game in Sacramento. I thought the Kings played a great half, and then Oklahoma City basically defensively just took them out of everything. And as you said, now right there was saying, okay, what can we do against this caliber defense better than we did, because we weren't able to get into anything. But that's to your point. You can't know how to get better until you find out what.
Speaking of Oklahoma City, they're resting 3 key guys tonight against Philadelphia, including SGA. They also get Philadelphia's first pick if it's not a top 6. But Philadelphia doesn't have anybody playing either, and it's 17-3 Oklahoma City with 5 minutes gone by. And they're not playing three key guys. This is the time of the year now, and it has already started. This is the time of the year where the schedule, you can get lucky. When you start playing teams like Philadelphia and some of these other teams that are clearly San Antonio, you're waving a white flag. If you had Dallas on your schedule the last 8 weeks of the season instead of the first 4 months of the season, you're lucky. I mean, so it's not only who you play, it's when you play them.
Well, it's like Utah and Washington playing.
Oh boy,
that may end up 0-0.
Yeah,
both teams. I mean, obviously the league's going to be looking at it. I mean, I really think that's a bad thing, especially when when as a league you're encouraging almost gambling and betting on games to have teams really clearly not trying to win or do their best. It's I think pretty disgusting, really.
Yep.
Because, and the other side is, it's like, well, LeBron James isn't in this draft either, and so you're going to, if Cooper Flagg's a guy, well, he's a terrific young player, no question, but he's not going to have an impact any more than Wembanyama did as far as winning and losing his first year.
Yeah,
down the road, yeah, he probably can be a major star. But you're talking 2 or 3 years.
So you're not really going to be that into the Washington Utah game a little bit later in Salt Lake City? Is that what you're telling me?
Actually, I might. That might even be fun just to see, knowing Danny and then what, it's like whether he'll have to trot out Marketing and Collins and the main guys, but just to see how quickly he gets them out of there, or they come up with a lower back strain or something, or flu-like symptoms might hit them at halftime.
Unbelievable.
What is the most, during your guys' time in the league, what is like the most generic reason that guys or teams used to use to pull a guy out?
Flu-like symptoms, back spasms. Let's see.
I've always thought flu-like symptoms is the flu.
Flu-like symptoms.
Well, actually, the flu is the flu. Flu-like symptoms means, it might be a little, need a couple extra.
You could be
hours of
sweating
rest
from the basketball game, and that is a flu-like symptom.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you
Back
can go warm up
spasms,
and
very
start
popular.
sweating.
Yes. I sat wrong on the bus on the way to the game. I'm sorry, I can't play.
Yeah.
Yeah. The league can do whatever they want as it relates to load management. Finding a team $100,000 like they did to the Jazz a couple of weeks ago for not playing Lauri Markkanen, that's not a deterrent. Okay. And I don't have the answer, but that's not a deterrent.
No, the only thing it really would be is you say, if you're caught, in our opinion, doing this on a number of occasions, whatever number that would be, you'll lose the pick.
That would resonate with teams. That would make a difference. That would make a difference.
Yeah, and I don't know why they don't do that. I mean, really, that's you owe it to fans. I mean, to see teams trying their best. It doesn't make any difference if they're real good or not. But man, especially the way the draft lottery plays out now, having the worst record doesn't guarantee you.
Guys,
John has a great response. Late nights will often give players flu-like symptoms. I had flu-like symptoms on my first road game. I made a mistake after the Kings Blazers game to go downstairs to the hotel bar, and Jerry Reynolds was sitting there with Phil Johnson, and they said, "Come on over." And those are the days when we flew commercial and had a 5 a.m. wake up call to get to the bus to get to the first flight out. And that I had flu-like symptoms the next day for that, Jerry. So thank you very much for that. That was my indoctrination into life on the road in the NBA. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And I'll tell you what, those 5, 6 o'clock wake up calls, man, they seem to come pretty quick.
They definitely came quick when we got kicked out of the bar at 3 a.m. Those did come very fast. You're right.
Well, I always liked it when I was working with Phil and Frank Hamlin when I was an assistant. And those guys, of course, they'd hit it pretty good. And I felt obligated to be with them. They expected me to. But Frank would always say, he always come up with they say final call, and he say, now is this the final, or is this just the final before the final?
Grant, I bet your back spasms were a lot better with that lighter wallet that next morning.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, those were some days. Flying commercial where you always, if you had a game the next day, the league rules said you had to be on the first flight out. So if the first flight out was at 6, that's the flight you had to be on. You didn't have a choice. That was a league mandate. And boy, that sucked. Those days were horrible.
Well, I always say too, the thing that with commercial flights, I'd always remember, as opposed to college coaching where the coach had some status, but in NBA in those days, well, if there are first class seats available, the veteran players.
That's right, and there were only 8 seats on those old 737s.
Yeah, so the older, more veteran players got those, and so I always say that you as a coach, you walk on the plane and see. Hi, visit with your players as you're walking back to coach.
Yep.
Kind of kept.
Yep. And if you were a 7-foot rookie, it did not matter. You were sitting in economy because back then Sacramento had, again, the smallest freaking planes ever invented by mankind flying in and out of Sacramento when we were flying commercial in the 80s. There were no wide bodies. There weren't any extravagant first classes for the players. There were 8 first class seats with 12 guys on the team. So guess what? If you were the low on the totem pole, you were in coach. That's the way it went. Coaches in the back,
In the back.
Yeah. Yep. Those were the days.
Did you at least get a meal in coach?
Yeah, usually you did. But certainly wasn't like charter meals.
Not different.
No, we got very spoiled in a hurry.
No.
Kings and Cavs tonight. If you're tuning in a little bit late, no Zach LaVine for personal reasons, no Jake LaRavia, and already about Sabonis. Meanwhile, Cleveland's without their all-star Darius Garland tonight. He's resting
comfortably at the Sawyer.
Yeah.
It is amazing, with Darius Garland, he's the son of Winston Garland, former Golden State Warrior. It's amazing how many players in the league now are sons of former players. Must be 20.
Yeah, about that.
Of course, Kings have Devin Garland and Sabonis. There's 2. Their fathers played in the NBA right there.
Yeah, Carter and Sabonis, and you're right around the league. That's true. I'll never forget. I remember, becoming old when the Wilkins, Neek and Gerald, and right when you were like, oh my God, that's his son now playing. I'm like, oh God, we've been doing this a long time. Yeah. All right. So what do you think? Will the Kings be competitive tonight, guys?
I think so. I think the guys that are going to get chances to play, this is a real opportunity. They're going to bring a lot of energy. So I'd be surprised if we don't have a game. I just, I'd like to believe they could win, but I don't believe that. The fact that they did play last night really helps.
Sure it does.
Because it takes a toll on those guys. So just like it'll take a toll on the Kings tomorrow night. But I think the Cavs are just too big, too deep, too talented to get the win. I think we might hopefully have a game to where they're within range.
I think it's going to be a good game to start, and maybe probably within 10 at halftime, maybe a little bit under, and then I think Cleveland runs away probably mid-third quarter. Grant.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it's going to be a difficult one. Again, Zach LaVine out with personal reasons. We're getting a lot of messages about what personal reasons means. It could be anything. I've always thought that for a professional athlete to miss a game, particularly at home, it's got to be real serious. It does. You understand he's married. He's got 3 kids. He's got a family dynamic that, again, I'm only speculating here. I could be totally wrong that it has something to do with the family. We hope everything is okay. But to me, if a professional athlete is missing a game due to personal reasons, it needs to be a pretty damn serious. That's that's just me speaking.
Yeah, I think usually it is. I'm sure there's exceptions. You might find some real exceptions where they're, somebody's taking advantage of that. But generally, I think if it's personal reasons,
Yes,
it really
absolutely.
is personal. Whether something in your family
Yep.
or
Yep.
parents or things of that
Yep.
nature. And so I think most of us, certainly understand.
Let's
or
hope
try
we don't
to.
have anybody on the Cavaliers calling out Zach LaVine in the asinine, stupid way that Draymond Green did about Karl Anthony Towns on his podcast, where he just absolutely destroyed him. It's an embarrassment. And I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but now that we're talking about this, I will. Any network that hires Draymond Green, you know what? You get what you deserve. All right. We've seen him on TNT and we've seen him. You want to hire this guy to be on your network. Good luck. All right. Because you're gonna regret the day you made that decision. This guy is a freaking disgrace.
Well, that's the shame of it, isn't it? I mean,
Yep,
he'll get a job because they're looking for
Yep.
controversy. In other words, just like, really, you're serious about putting knowledgeable basketball people on, then, well, why has Kendrick Perkins got a job? There's about 500 guys you can come up with that have a better idea than him on just about everything.
And the other issue is that's when you come out and you make an apology and you go, hey, man, you know what? I erred on that. I am really sorry. And my bad. Let's move on. And I'll tell him I'm sorry when I see him next week. So it's, man, just incredible.
Yeah, I didn't hear all. What exactly?
He basically said that Cat was not playing because he didn't want to play against who was it, Grant? It was Jimmy Butler. He didn't want to play against Jimmy Butler, and Cat had a very close friend pass away from cancer. He happened to be at the services, which is
right. It was a very, very important person in their family life, and he missed a game to attend the funeral. And Draymond accused him of not playing because he didn't want to play against Jimmy Butler. And I thought Jason Hart said it best, his teammate on the Knicks. He says, I think Cat, meaning Karl Anthony Towns, handled it the right way. For me, I have my own podcast and all that stuff. Whenever I'm wrong about something, I'll sit there and say I was wrong. For me, I wish he kind of did that. Just apologize. You don't got to be embarrassed or feel like apologizing is when you're wrong. It isn't manly. No, I wish he did that. Now that it's in the past and we're moving on. That's exactly right. Apologize and say, hey, I really messed up there. I'm sorry. Let's move on. But, that's not in Draymond's MO. But generally speaking, my experience with dealing with, and it doesn't happen very often, when a player misses a game for a personal reason, it's a legitimate reason.
Yeah. I'm going to go a step further than the networks hiring Draymond Green. How about the NBA signing off on Draymond Green being a part of a network panel that carries the league? Because it's everything that's wrong with the NBA. Both of you heard or listened to or you heard about Draymond Green trashing the All-Star game for 2.5 hours leading in to the All-Star game.
You get what you deserve. And you want to make a stupid decision, then you have to pay for those decisions. So that's how I would answer that.
My wife has a saying, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah. Yep. Jerry said it all by not having to comment. There's nothing you can say. The guy is what it is. All right. So the schedule tonight, Cavaliers, tomorrow Bulls. And I keep saying this because here's a situation tonight where you're down 2 other players. You can't forecast injuries, but boy, this Kings team, they need to be really careful here coming down the stretch. Because, Jerry, you hit on something I had not really talked about, or we haven't talked that much about. They're still learning how to play with one another. You talk about LaVine and Sabonis. You're talking about you've got a play in here in a couple of weeks because that's where you're going to be. And you would love to have some rhythm and some consistency, which is something this new group has not had. They have not been consistent. They have not found their rhythm. They have had some good stretches. They've had really bad stretches. It's not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things to where, like I say, key guys. I mean, it just so happens that Domas has missed a lot of time here for the first time in probably his career.
Yes.
All after, getting the new guys. And you just really need those guys getting together. And this team, you can't even know how well things fit yet. It's just a guesstimate. And you're still sorting it all out. And I just, hope if Domas could at least get back for 5 or 6 games at the end, and everybody be healthy at the same time, and kind of at least feel like you're going into the play-in, on the same page at least.
Yep.
I'm gonna break it down to a pretty simple set of numbers. The Kings have played 12 games. In the 6 that they've won, they're averaging 29.8 assists and 12.8 turnovers. Their margin of victory is 20.2 points. Their 6 losses, they're averaging 23.8 assists, turnovers 16, margin of loss -17. Circle it
Wow.
right there. That's where
Wow.
this team needs to find that chemistry. That is what needs to get figured out in the remaining 15, 20 games.
Yeah, and that's of course I've always said. I mean, that's such a key stat that gets overlooked: assist turnover ratio. But and since the trades and all that, and they just haven't been themselves. I mean, they haven't looked comfortable consistently. Now they've been able to make up for it other ways, but and you have a feeling that if they could ever get guys together a while, they might be able to clear up some of the turnovers. And I always say I think with Domas getting comfortable with Zach and LaRavia and all that. I think this could be a really good offensive team, but right now they, even when they were playing, it didn't seem like they were playing together all the time. It wasn't one guy's fault. It's just they're searching for how we need to play.
Jerry, in your expertise, I've been talking about on my show, it looks like the Kings, when they're in half-court sets, they're looking for one option, and they're trying anything they can to get to that one option, and then it's scramble time. Are you seeing something similar, Coach?
No, yeah, actually, too much, and you're right. I mean, it's like, okay, the first option isn't there. Well, now all of a sudden we're using clock and we're going to make something happen. Sometimes they can, but that's not a very good strategy. I mean, that's why I kind of like when you're in the half court, I like a little more structure because, you're looking for the first option. If it's not there, there's a reason. Then you go to the second and the third. It's just like a quarterback trying to pick out receivers.
Progressions.
Progressions. And you've got 16 seconds to do it and all that. But when you settle, it's just like it when you're as a quarterback, you're going to force it into your main guy. That doesn't bode well. So I think there's some similarities there. But I think this team and as we saw probably the year they won 48 games, I think that's one of the things you saw was a real fluidity where the ball moved. Everybody kind of knew where it's supposed to go and who's supposed to get it, that sort of thing. And really didn't see that quite last year, and we certainly haven't seen it at the same level this year.
NBA, some games going on tonight that will affect the standings in the West. You look at Dallas, they are currently playing in Indiana. It's actually a pretty close game. I'm surprised by that. It's 79-76 Indiana with 5 minutes left to go in the third. The Rockets are on top of the Magic, 80-65, 3:30 left in the third quarter there. The Timberwolves are home to the Pelicans. They have a 37-24 lead a minute into the second quarter. The Thunder are up 15 on Philly, 2 minutes gone by in the second quarter. And the Spurs currently lead the Knicks 31-25 with 11 minutes left in the first half. Nuggets, I'm looking at the way they're playing right now. I'm looking at some of the other teams in the West. My question to you guys is, if we put Oklahoma City on the back burner for right now and don't mention them, who do you think the second best team in the West is?
I think it's Denver. In other words, they played a lot of the year without Aaron Gordon. And they're a thin team, but Westbrook has really helped them. But you go into the playoffs, you don't have to have the same depth. And they got Jokic, and they know how to win, and they got a great coach. So I think they're the biggest threat to Oklahoma City.
I have 2 schedules I'm looking at right now, which is odd. I've got the Bulls playing tonight in Phoenix. Is that accurate? Because
That's
Huh?
what NBA.com and ESPN had as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I've got them actually playing in Phoenix tonight. I'm on ESPN. I'm looking at their schedule. They've got Chicago with Phoenix, and then I'm looking at a Google schedule of the Bulls games, and they didn't have this them playing. So they're actually in action tonight. My bad. They're according to this schedule, they're playing at Phoenix, so that will even up things tomorrow. Because you have Memphis at Portland tonight. You have Denver at the Lakers, which I think is going to be a very interesting game. So we were just talking about without Oklahoma City, who do you think the second best team is? I still have a problem not considering a team with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray as a real threat. You're going to have to play really well to beat that team 4 times.
Well, that's my feeling. I mean, in other words, and they've won a championship. They didn't win last, but they've got a championship coach. They know how it is. Would you bet on them to beat Oklahoma City? I wouldn't right now. But then again, like I say, with Gordon, he missed so much of the middle of the season, and he's really playing well now, and he's really gotten better. I mean, their starting 5 is very good.
Good.
They're a bit thin, on the bench. But the bench becomes a little less of a factor when you get in the playoffs because you don't play back to back.
Yep.
And you play your main guys more. It's always been that way.
Okay, guys.
Timeouts are longer too. Go ahead, Rhino.
Let's take it a step further then. So if we've got those 2 at the top, below that, who is your next team that you think could surprise? And I think it's between 2. But Jerry, who do you go with?
Well, it's Lakers for me. I mean, they've got 3 guys that are really. There again, LeBron's got to be healthy and Luke is healthy, and but Austin Reeves is really an underrated player.
Very much.
Yep.
And I don't know of any team that's got a 3rd guy any better than he is. And now, and they've got decent depth. They just don't have the one big guy they maybe need. So I think, you can't count LeBron out, and he and Luka are 2 guys that basically are unguardable. So. You can't count those guys out.
I'm with you on the Lakers. I'm also going to say Minnesota for this reason. They advanced to the Western Conference Finals last year, and it's taken them a long time to figure out this trade. They've had injuries with Randall, Dante DiVincenzo's been out, Anthony Edwards has not been as consistent as he's been. But when I look at that roster and I look at how they have been playing as of late, and getting everyone back and healthy, that team going into the playoffs with a rhythm, to me, that would be a team that I would not rule out.
You hit the nail on the head. Rhythm. That's what's been missing the entire year for them.
Yep.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, they're deep, and they got a main star in Edwards. Of course, I think Naz Reid is a real difference maker, because they don't lose a step when Gobert's out, for that matter. He's one of those guys that can stretch 4 or play 5 and block shots. So, they've got depth and they've got stars and they've been close. So, as you guys pointed out too, they've had so many injuries that's kind of hurt them until just recently getting healthy.
How serious are you guys taking Golden State?
I'm probably not there yet, but
me neither.
They're really a lot better. And I'll give them that. And Jimmy Butler's been a great addition, but I don't know. I have a tough time seeing them in a series beating Minnesota or the Lakers or Denver or Oklahoma City. I just think in the 7-game series, I just don't see how they do that.
Yeah, I think that the tough thing for me to get past is how they're going to play against double bigs and how they're going to do that effectively.
Going to be an issue, that is for sure. Rhino, you're gonna just keep going, roll right into the pregame, right?
Yeah, we're just gonna roll through, get everybody ready for tonight. You guys have done a great job already. We could end it here.
Well, that's we got to make sure Jerry gets enough rest because he has to come on for 12 to 14 minutes at halftime. So I don't want to wear him out here at the 5 o'clock show.
Yeah, I've got to get a little nap in there pretty soon.
All right, Jerry, we'll talk to you at halftime. Rhino, I'll talk to you at halftime. Have a good pregame, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Fun roundtable as always. Let's get ready for it. Kings and Cavs. Still plenty to discuss on this one. You're welcome to call the show. Use the QR code that is on the screen. You can also hit the link that I am going to put into the chat. We can talk about what happened last night when it came to the Cleveland Cavaliers, what they do well, what they don't do well, and the Kings, the injury concerns. No Jake LaRavia, no Zach LaVine, and obviously no Domantas Sabonis. And I think that's actually a pretty interesting conversation if you want to have it. How do you handle Sabonis coming back? Because 10 days doesn't seem like nearly enough for what I saw. I think it's going to be a little bit longer of an injury stretch. Another guy that the Kings signed to a 10-day contract. We'll talk about him on the other side. Let's get it ready. Pre-game show. Here we go on If You Don't Like That.
Late nights on the screen, hey, it's Grant and Ryan. We bleed purple, talking hoops, never lying. Sacramento Kings, we rise and we fall. If you don't like that, then you don't know ball. Jerry sitting with the stories of the game, spilling all the truth, driving legends insane. From the Cow Palace days to Arco's roar, this town's heart beats on the hardwood floor. If you like that, turn away now. Kings in our blood, we ride strong and proud.
All right, who's trolling us? Who in the truck is trolling us with that? I don't know what that was. What's up, everybody? How you doing tonight? Thanks for sitting with us through the roundtable. Always a fun show indeed. Now it is time for your involvement. If you're going to the game, let us know. In fact, one of my guys, I don't remember his name, but I know him pretty well. I see him on a regular basis. Him and his entire crew going to be at the game tonight. They're sitting up top. Hope you guys have a good time. You know who you are. What are your expectations for tonight? Where are we at for tonight? You think the Kings keep this close? Do you think this is going to be a blowout? We can talk. Yeah, the Vivek dance. How about that, man? I told Grant, I said, maybe we could get you and Jerry to try that dance. That would be pretty funny. No, not funny. Maybe. Let Vivek dance in the circle during the player announcements each game. I think the best one was the kicks, the English kicks that the 2001-2002 team did. That was the best. I loved those. Close game, Dennis says. All right, close game. We'll see. 3 weeks for Sabonis. Yeah, no doubt. Here's what I would do. If I was the Kings, and especially with that hamstring, I'm shutting Domas down. And I mean this with all due respect as we get you ready for tonight, the Kings and the Cavaliers. I'm shutting Domas down until the Kings return home from the East Coast road trip, which basically means early April. He's not playing the rest of this month. In fact, I am probably putting him on a minutes restriction through that first game back. Maybe ramp it up a little bit more the second game. Let him go as much as he can go the third game, which is your last game against Phoenix, and then straight into the play-in, because that's what this is about now. This is like a UFC, and think about the Kings. This is like a training camp almost. That's the way that I'm looking at it, is at least. You're building up to this play-in because not a lot is going to change, win or lose, with the schedule that the Kings have ahead, which we will go over here in a little bit. So do everything to try to peak at the right time. Julian, what's up, man? Ryan, what's up, my brother? Ryan, Kings make the playoffs this year, in your opinion? Grant said no. Jerry said yes. No, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. Unless something changes in the next 3 weeks where we start to see some more structure. We start to see a more solidified traditional rotation. We see some gelling. We see a prolonged period of time with the Kings not turning the ball over at a high rate. If that changes, maybe they can get in as the 8 seed, but I just don't think right now, as this team sits, that they can win 2 in a row. But we will see. Sauce Castillo, that's a hell of a name. What's up, Sauce? Go Kings. Dennis, 14 games left. How many can he play? 14 games. Are you talking about Domas? I would only have Domas play 3 games. 3 games. That's what I would have him play the rest of the way. And we can talk about that more in a little bit. Let's talk about the matchup tonight. We have already kind of given you who is in, who is out. Let's go through this real quick. Obviously, Domantas Sabonis, he is out with that ankle sprain. Shams reported 10 days. We're thinking it's going to be a little bit longer. Nothing concrete on that, but just kind of a gut feeling. Go off of what Jerry said. I agree with him. Zach LaVine out with personal reasons. That came a little bit later. Hopefully everything's going okay for him and his family. You worry about that. And Terry Taylor, my man, TT, who I have been following very closely in Stockton. He signed a 10-day contract with the Kings. I talked about him yesterday on the Kings court. I went back and watched it. The videos cut off early. So if you were watching the show, you didn't see the end of the videos that I put up, some of the footage that I shot from Stockton this year. We'll go over his game. Not likely that he's going to get a lot of playing time during this 10-day contract, but who knows? Maybe tonight, depending on how this one turns out, he might get some burn, but don't expect much. It's going to be very similar to what we've seen with Scal. So here we go. Here's how we're looking tonight. Also, Jake LaRavia out with an illness. Doug Christie, after last game, talked about the Kings win against Memphis. It was a good win. Some very good things. The defense really picking up this team. The 6 turnovers in 7 possessions was incredible. Turning over Memphis 6 times in 7 possessions in the first quarter. Doug Christie, right here for you.
For us, that's more what we expect as far as the fight. 15 turnovers, still a bit of a work in progress. 35 assists, 41 threes. 26 of those assists came from the starters. Off the bench, Devin, Keon, Jake, spectacular. They all came in and brought the level of physicality, intensity, effort, enthusiasm, all the things that we talk about. So from that standpoint, NBA games are hard to win. So I'm really proud of the way that.
And speaking of Doug Christie, he's taking the podium right now before the game. Let's hear what he has to say.
We already knew Sabonis was going to be out now. LaRavia and LaVine are both out as well. Just how do you try to piece this thing together, next man up mentality?
Yeah, we got players who are chomping at the bit to play. So the opportunity presents itself. I believe in all of them. Unfortunate, but when the opportunity presents itself, that's why we're a team. This isn't an individual sport, it's a team sport. So we come together as a team, and that will be the goal this evening.
Doug, do you have any idea whether Zach or Jake will be available tomorrow?
I'm hoping so. I know my head might look like a crystal ball, but it is not, Jay. But yeah, I got my fingers crossed for that for sure.
With no Domas, how much do you still just try to run the same things compared to have to, change what you do stylistically with him out?
Domas is a special player. So you can run the same stuff, but it's just a little different because of what he brings to the game. So we stay in our sets. We'll look for other options and different things, but for the most part, it's a simple game, man. It's simple, like drive, kick, swing. You want to create an advantage, keep the advantage. Don't turn the damn ball over. Make sure that you're sharing the basketball with your teammates, and play with an extreme amount of joy.
Doug, when you look at what the Cleveland has been able to accomplish this year, what's maybe jumped out to you about how much they've changed since last year?
I think that watching them and looking, similar to what I just said, the joy that they play with, I'm watching on their bench when they make a play. For me, I always look at stuff like that because I think it symbolizes like what you're about. Because if you're not happy for your teammates, and they are all extremely happy, it doesn't matter if it's a starter, it doesn't matter if it's a reserve, last guy on the bench, it doesn't matter. I will probably look also at their ball movement and body movement. It looks at a really, really high level. And then I would say the selflessness of their superstars, I think jumps out at me. Donovan isn't really caring if he gets 36. He's probably even more happy when he gets 10 assists, looking at the way he's playing, throwing lobs and all the different things. So, kudos to them. They've unlocked some things, and it's a good style of basketball.
Doug, I just wanted to ask you about, obviously, you got Terry Taylor up here. You had him in training camps all over the summer. Just what have you seen in the time that he's been with the G League?
Physical, brings it every single night. And I mean, that's, T hits the floor. That's what I'm going to expect from him. He plays extremely hard, and I respect and appreciate that. That it's just another guy that has paid his dues, and I think that it is always good when we can reward our own for doing good, because it's a.
So let's talk about TT for a second. Sorry, guys, the computer froze up. I was trying to work through that. Hopefully you're able to hear that audio. We're also going to talk about Cleveland for a second as well, about what they do well, what they don't do well. In fact, they do more things well than things they do bad. Let's just put it that way. One of the biggest challenges, first and foremost, for this Kings team tonight, defending the three ball. It's a challenge every single night, but look at it right there. Cleveland, the number one team at shooting the three ball per percentage. They take the third most in the NBA, or excuse me, the fourth most in the NBA. So the Kings are going to have to find a way to make sure they're trying to drive some guys off the line. And quite frankly, if I'm Doug Christie tonight, I am throwing the kitchen sink. When I mean that, the kitchen sink at this Cleveland team. I don't care if I play every guy on the roster. It feels like it is that type of game. You're trying to find something. You are without Zach LaVine. And call me crazy, and I know the Kings are better with Zach LaVine. I'm actually kind of okay with it, considering it's a back-to-back, and I'm not okay with the circumstances. I hope everything is fine with him and his family. But it means more minutes for Keon Ellis. It probably means more minutes for Devin Carter. And Devin Carter is going to be kind of that wild card tonight for the Kings in this sense. He can guard multiple positions because of his length. So how much switching are the Kings going to be able to do out on the perimeter? And then also, what is that pick and roll game going to look like tonight with Valanciunas and Malik Monk? Malik's making a couple of bad decisions a game, just mindless decisions. You saw one last game where Doug called a timeout and met him right at half court to coach him up. And I thought that was kind of he didn't need to be coached up. That was a message to Malik Monk. Hopefully that got through. But looking at Cleveland's numbers, turnovers, they don't do it very much. Third in the NBA in turnovers. So can the Kings put some pressure on them? Look, zone defense. Yeah, right. I'm kind of thinking ever since that Vivek video has been on here. In fact, we're going to get rid of that video right now. We have had trouble since that video has been on here. So kiss it goodbye. It is no more. Gone. Off. Namas. Hopefully the system works better now. But no, with Cleveland, they're deep. You look at what their starters played last night. We're going to look at that right now. They lost to the Clippers, but their starters last night not going very deep at all. 31 minutes, 32 minutes, 32 minutes, 34 minutes, 26 minutes. It starts with Donovan Mitchell. But this Cleveland team, as I asked Jerry earlier, they are the most complete team right now in the NBA to me. Oklahoma City, a close second, but Cleveland is the most complete team. There is so little wasted movement with this Cleveland bunch. They know exactly where they want to be. They know exactly where their teammates are going to be, and they just function so well. You will see, and I mean this with all due respect, they are a different cut above the Kings as a basketball team. No disrespect intended, but it's just the facts. Look at the records. They are extremely well coached. Their basketball IQ is through the roof, although they are coming off of 2 straight losses in this one. Now, Doug mentioned TT. I have been covering Stockton now for a couple of seasons. I usually take an interest into one player a year, one guy that I am really focusing, honing in on, wanting to see what their next steps can be, how Stockton is developing in them. 2 years ago, it was Kessler Edwards. Last year, it was Mason Jones. This year, it has been Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor, 6'4", left-handed player, extremely intelligent. He can do a little bit of everything. Now, he's not over the top quick. He's got a very, very beautiful shot. Gets it off fairly well. Shot would remind you his jump shot, which is a little bit more of a set shot, but his shot is somewhere in between a Zach Randolph and a Zion Williamson, the way that it looks form-wise. But he's a hustler. He's a grinder. He can mix it up. He can get up and down the court. Limitation is size at 6'4". But TT he deserves this moment. He's one of those guys that has not been a two-way player, and he's been holding it down in Stockton. So I'm going to put up, and you're not going to see all the clips through because I know they cut off, or at least they did early last show. But here's some clips that I took earlier this season of TT being down in Stockton. Gives you a couple ideas about what he can do. Here's a clip of him taking the ball, the length of the court, and making the correct play. Or excuse me, taking his guy off the dribble, drawing a foul. So he can get over the top. This is the one that I really like, taking it the length of the court and setting up Scow. And last but not least, a very nice touch. Good first step here, too. Very fundamental. Good sweep. So that's your guy, TT, one of the foundations in Stockton. His growth has been incredible. The people I talked to down there, Gabriel Harris, I've talked to him about TT, things that they're working on with him. TT can play at pace. So again, size limitation. He's kind of in between. He's more of a power, or he's more of a forward, but he's only 6'4". But again, a little bit longer, can play in between. So I'll be interested to see if the Kings give him any minutes while he is here in Sacktown. But congratulations to him on the 10-day contract. Certainly, again, Valanciunas going to play a big role into tonight's game. And what's really big about him tonight is, can you stay out of foul trouble? Because you've got Trey Lyles, who's a little bit dinged up. And after that, it's IJ. You got to get IJ some minutes. I'm thinking IJ actually athletically would not be bad tonight against some of the matchups with Cleveland. So good or bad, whatever comes from this game, there still are opportunities for this team to grow a little bit because, again, it's time to peak. It is time to try to get as ready as you can for this play-in that's going to be coming up with this just desperate stretch of basketball, hard stretch of basketball. So anyways, get your questions in here, get your predictions in here for the game tonight. How do you see it going? What are you looking at? If you'd like to call the show, talk about anything else that is going on in the NBA, we can do that as well. Thanks for joining us here on the channel. Don't forget, by the way, we are back at halftime. Grant and Jerry will be here. Talk about the first half, hopefully a good first half and a good start for the Kings. They're going to need it. And we'll give you our predictions for the second half and the post-game show. Grant and I will be hitting that, taking your phone calls, and bringing you home later tonight. That show is all about you, so make sure you get up in here and call the show. We would love to hear from you. Keep the comments coming. We're going to keep listening to those. In the meantime, a little bit more Doug Christie from just a few minutes ago.
That we're trying to establish, and we've seen other teams. I say we. I have watched other teams that have used in what I consider their system correctly of bringing players up, sending them down, developing them, and then they actually come into the NBA and they're ready to go. So I'm hoping that that's what we continue to do.
Doug, you've talked a lot about like trust kind of since you've taken over. How important is that factor in a game like this, where you're missing like 3 key guys? How much trust do these players have to have in one another to make the right read, the right pass, things like that?
It's a fair question. I think even with our guys prior to the other night, that was one of the things that we're trying to establish. Is even when I came here, like I had played basketball my whole life, but I always say I didn't learn how to play basketball until I got to the Kings, because you get off the ball, and on a lot of teams it doesn't come back to you. There's a trust in that, and the ball gravitates towards.
Yo, JT, my man, who's stirring the chat a little bit right now. You're the straw that is stirring up the chat. My man, I don't know how much you watch this channel. And thank you, by the way, for being here and watching this channel. But my assumption is if you watch the channel a lot, then you would know what you put in the chat right there that's on the screen. That's untrue. Grant does not talk about Doug Christie all the time saying he should not be a head coach. That's wrong. Open your ears, my man. When Doug Christie was named head coach of the Kings, both Grant and myself said that it is not normal for a team to jump 3 seats on the bench. 3 seats. Usually your associate head coach, if your head coach is fired, is named the interim head coach. That would have been Jay Triano. Doug was 4th seat on the bench. The Kings chose to go with him. That is what Grant took issue with. Grant would have taken issue with anybody that would have been in that 4th seat that jumped over 3 other coaches. It has nothing to do with Doug's qualifications. It has nothing to do with anything that's happened with Grant and Doug in the past. It is a procedural thing, my man. We have given Doug Christie plenty of love here on this channel. We have also talked about limitations. We have also talked about concerns about overplaying guys. So that's just factually not true, my man. Clearing the record here. Anybody that's been on this channel for any length of time understands that. So to me, JT, you're either hearing what you want to hear or you're just being a troll. Ain't true, dude. Ain't true. Doug Christie.
Those that it should gravitate towards. So for players that haven't played, even the other night when I put in the 5 to close the game, my message to them was play the right way. Like, it doesn't matter who the name on the back of the jersey, it matters what's on the front and how we play. This is how we play in Sacramento. And that is always going to be my messaging. And, some guys are going to get more than others. That's the nature of competition. I understand that. But we want to go out and we want to play a certain style of basketball.
Doug, you've dealt with so much here in a short period of time with guys in and out, and in addition to guys joining the team, guys, you know, in your rotation coming in and out of the lineup, like how are you handling all this on like a personal level? Big opportunity for you. I know you're doing the best you can, but how are you processing it and just trying to tackle like one thing after another right now?
Copious amounts of copy. You know, like I'd say like my whole life I've kind of been dealt certain things, and you know, my mom would always say, don't complain, be appreciative of the opportunity. So that's kind of how I look at it. Like I could say, oh, this, all that, woe is me, but that's just not really how I'm built. So yeah, it's always something, but that's okay, because in life it's always something. And if you're only riding real good when it's good, then I don't really rock with you anyway, because you got to be able to keep your mind and have a positive outlook when things get choppy, because therein lies the opportunity for growth in a lot of different things. So that's just kind of how I've taken it. You guys will ultimately be the judge of what you think that is. But I'm good.
That's Doug before the game. Hey, JT, it's all good, brother. I'm not trying to hop your bones. I'm not trying to make an example out of you. It's just we are very big on this channel about accuracy and being consistent. And I would say on this channel, many times you don't get just one side of the opinion. You don't get one side of the story. We look at it objectively, whether it's good for the Kings or bad for the Kings. And the reason that we pointed out, and I am bringing this up again, JT, the reason that discussion started was because of concern about the way this Kings organization's looked at. It's not a coincidence. I mean, that Domantas Sabonis has not become an all-star, but yet he's been an all-NBA player, right? It's not a coincidence that Malik Monk was not the sixth man of the year last year. It's because other coaches, executives, it's a tight-knit group. They look at those things. Agents, they look at those things. The media looks at those things and they say, damn, that's weird. That just doesn't make sense. That's backwards. That organization's being ran poorly. And so that's what filters through. And so when you jump 3 or 4 seats to put the guy that's fourth in line into the main chair, that's the ripple effect it has. So it has nothing to do with Doug and everything to do with the perception of this organization, which all of you deserve a crystal clean, great reputation for an organization. Unfortunately, right now, there's been more than a few hiccups, bumps in the road. This year, maybe one of the bumpiest, extending a coach, firing a coach, having articles coming out saying that the owner's daughter is involved in decision-making. Hell, the owner's daughter's boyfriend, who was a Sacramento King and a Stockton King, having say in decision-making. When that stuff's making it to the national media, and that's what's getting into print, it's a bad look across the board. And it affects directly the Kings' ability to bring in good candidates for head coaches, good candidates for general managers, good free agents. Agents say, nah, you don't want to go there. It limits the pool. And so you get stuck into this ugly, ugly rotation of just bad pools to choose from and people that don't want to be in Sacramento, unfortunately. So again, nothing against Doug. We want the best for this team. We want the best for all of you. Grant spelled that out perfectly the other night, but it's backwards. You know, Doug's done a good job. Doug didn't ask to be head coach of this team. That was not something he prepared for this year. He has done his best. And imagine if you're a coaching staff or you're a coach on that bench that got passed up. We've seen Luke Laux already leave to go to Florida State. And I don't blame Luke Laux for going to Florida State. He played there. For a lot of guys, that's your dream, to go coach your alma mater, right? But if you're a Jay Triano, if you're somebody else on the bench that's been grinding and working your way up, because there is, believe it or not, a process, just like behind the scenes in whatever you guys might do for a living, paying your dues, working your way up. Same thing. in many ways in the NBA. So yeah, nothing hard against Doug, but doesn't mean we're going to take it easy on Doug either. We're going to give him the same attention, the same love, and the same criticism that we would give any other person sitting in that seat. So I appreciate you putting that back in the chat. And again, not trying to make you the subject of the show, but I get it, man. We just like to make sure that those things are cleared up. It just is what it is around here. Luke Laux said, see ya. I don't blame him, but I don't remember a guy doing that in the middle of a season. That's kind of crazy. So anyways, Kings and Cavs tonight, busy night in the NBA. Let's see, BJ, people don't take a referral from Grant, then I'd look into that person who wouldn't. Napes got I don't want to retread all of that stuff. But look, I appreciate the love and what you're saying about other shows. Some of those other shows are people that I greatly respect, and I think they run really good shows too. So I'm not going to put them down either. Now, others, that's up for conversation, but I don't need to identify which ones are which. So let me spell it out for you here. This is what it's going to come down to tonight. I said it on the show earlier with Jerry and Grant. The Kings have 6 wins and 6 losses since the All-Star break. 6 wins, 6 losses. In those 6 losses, the Kings are losing by an average of 17 points. They're plus minus in those games, 17, minus 17. In their 6 wins since the All-Star break, they're winning by 20.2 points. Why is that? Why is there such a big swing in those numbers? And you can point to 2 areas. It's very simple when you look at the numbers. When the Kings win in those 6 wins, they're averaging 29.8 assists, and they're only averaging 12.8 turnovers. That means the ball's moving. That means you have multiple scorers that are affecting the game. You have a good flow. In those 6 losses, the Kings are only averaging 23.8 assists. 23.8 assists and 16 turnovers, which leads to a negative 17 for those 6 losses. They average losing those 6 games by 17 points. So what it comes down to tonight, and I think you are set up perfectly tonight for this, you are set up perfectly to see a lot of ball movement. In fact, there really is no room for isolation tonight with the guys that are going to be playing. So ball movement, 100% the key. 100%. And if the Kings can get 28 or more assists, they will have a chance to win the game. Now, Devin Carter is going to be your wild card. I don't know what you're going to get from him offensively, but if you do get anything like you got from him defensively last game, it's going to be good. Now, Doug's also going to have to get creative when it comes to the defense tonight, which is going to be a little bit hard because Cleveland is such a high basketball IQ team. But when I say creative, that's with the traps, that's creative with the zone defenses, and you're going to have to take some risks. This is not a game tonight where the Kings can come in and be conservative and just try to play vanilla. This is where you throw everything at your opponent. If you watch the Indiana Pacers game against the Bucks last week, where they pulled that Hail Mary play out of their back pocket to get Tyrese Halliburton that 3 at the end of the game, which turned into a 4-point play. They end up winning on that. You're going to have to do stuff like that tonight. So with who they have available, again, no Jake LaRavia. He is sick. No Domantas Sabonis, out at least 10 games with the ankle sprain. And then can't forget about Zach LaVine, who is out due to personal reasons. Hopefully everything is good with him. It is set up tonight for you guys to have a good ball movement game, assuming the Kings don't turn it over. And here's the other key. Valanciunas got to stay out of foul trouble, but you're going to need to get some effort from everybody tonight. So give me your final scores. Let me know who you taking, why you taking them, and we will get ready to get out of here. We'll give you a few minutes to go and enjoy the game. Hey, I love the aggression of him taking it to the hole like that. I love that. You know, one of the things, if I'm Doug Christie, something that I am looking at, because that's one thing that you have to worry about tonight. You have one less ball handler on the court with Zach LaVine out, two less ball handlers with Zach LaVine and Domantas Sabonis out. So one thing that I've noticed while watching film with Devin Carter, if you're going to have him bringing the ball up, you got to get him bringing the ball up downhill. Get him going downhill. He's much more confident with the basketball when he's going downhill. If he's bringing it up on a slow walk, that's where the Kings can run into some issues, which leads me to the other thing, pace. The Kings make, miss, steal, whatever, they have got to run tonight. And that's why I say if I'm Doug Christie, I'll play every damn person on the bench, especially seeing as it is a first night of a back-to-back. But if the Cavs make a shot, take that ball and run. That's what I'm doing. LaVine has been shooting 45% from 3 for the Kings. This is also, and it goes without saying, a big Keegan Murray night. Keegan's going to have to be aggressive, and he's going to have some tough matchups. But in terms of the defense and the switchability, I think you are actually in a decent spot with the guys that you're missing. Now, you wish you had LaRavia in the mix there, but Trey Lyles, don't forget about him. He scraps it up too. Trey Lyles can get in there and stick his nose in there as well. So Joseph, over under 4 X's, Devin Carter driving to the hole 4 times, throwing up a brick lay and following and sliding onto the court. He is on the court a lot. I'm not going to go with the over-under, but yes, he does end up on the ground a lot, which I don't mind defensively. Get on the ground and get the ball. I wonder how many fans out there would be supporting Doug as a coach if he never played for Sac. Think it would be different. Well, you know, that's a great question. I don't know. Okay, here's the distinction. Sacramento 100% would be behind Doug's ideals about the non-negotiables when it comes to the hustle, when it comes to the effort, when it comes to going as hard as you can to the point to you have to raise your hand to come out of the game. Sacktown and its fans, I believe, would be loving it, all over it. Now, the flip side of that is if your players aren't doing it, then Sacktown probably wouldn't be having it with Doug. I think Doug gets a little bit of extra leeway in between there. When the guys are doing it, it's great. When the guys aren't doing it, Doug probably does get a little bit more leniency because that's the way he played the game. And that's the way he did it his entire time here in Sacramento. It's actually a very good question. Good job by you. Zach is the only person who can chuck threes in people's eyes. Nobody else. Maybe Jake. I disagree with that, Donald. What about Malik? Malik isn't shy. Now, he hasn't been shooting it well. Trey can do it. He's not afraid of chucking it in somebody's eye, but I see what you're saying. Rhino has aspirations of being a broadcaster. And I'm saying is he needs his own brand. I don't know how you feel, Grant, or about how Grant got treated. Rhino needs his own brand. Well, I can tell you I am extremely lucky. Well, I think I'm trying to build my own brand if you're not paying attention to the King's Court, but very lucky to have spent the time that I continue to spend with Grant. Anybody, look, I tell this to anybody that talks to me. If you run into me in person, Grant Napier could do a show with a broomstick and make that broomstick look like they deserve an Emmy. That's how good he is. So very special talent. Anyways, all right. Any more scores before we wrap up? Win or lose, here's what you got to have. No injuries tonight. Kings got to come out of this one clean. I would say come in with low expectations. Go in with an open mind, right? but hope for the best. And I think you're going to see a competitive first half. Where it goes from there, we'll see. The Kings cannot go on any of those lulls. If they go on one of those lulls, it will be good night now for them, because Cleveland is just that good. Cleveland coming off of 2 losses, lost last night to the Clippers. But hey, just as it is every night, it doesn't matter who is across the court from the Kings. It could be Cleveland, it could be Oklahoma City, Chicago, it could be the Jazz. It doesn't matter. What matters first is if the Kings can beat the Kings. If the Kings can beat the Kings tonight, then they will have a chance against the Cavs. It's all you can ask for. So, hey, don't forget, we are back at halftime. Jerry Reynolds with us. Going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to talk to him again. He's getting his nap in right now. And then Grant and I wrap up the night with you with the post-game show. No Laravia, no Levine, no Sabonis. Terry Taylor, 10-day contract. Expect some Isaac Jones in this one, would be my guess, and a heavy dose of Devin Carter off the bench. Big night for Keon. Big night for Keegan Murray. Gonna need those two. Gonna need 5 Kings at least in double figures. Gonna need 28 assists as well, and no foul trouble. You do all those things, maybe, just maybe, we are talking about a beam tonight. So go Kings, light the damn beam. We will see you at the end of the first half. Make sure you come right back here on If You Don't Like That. Enjoy the first half of the Kings and the Cavs. So long.